Welcome back to another deep dive. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And make sure you tap that notification bell so you don't miss any of our future explorations.
Definitely.
Today we're taking a trip back in time to ancient India.
Ooh, I love time travel episodes.
Me too. We're focusing on a really fascinating dynasty, the Gurjara Pratiharas.
Ah, yes, the
Yep.
Gurjara Pratiharas. They ruled a huge chunk of northern India for centuries. Their impact is still felt today.
Exactly. And if you're prepping for those UPSC exams, listen up.
Mm.
This is especially important for your GS1 medieval history prep. You know, the early Vedic period, it all ties in.
It's all connected. Understanding the Gurjara Pratiharas, how they rose, how they fell, what they achieved, it's all key to getting that bigger picture of ancient Indian history.
So let's dive into their origins. It's a bit of a puzzle, isn't it?
It is. There are a few different theories floating around.
Like some historians think they might have migrated from Central Asia.
Right, possibly after the Gupta Empire started to decline. But then there's this other really interesting theory.
The Fire Clan legend.
Yes. This one's rooted in tradition. It claims that the Gurjara Pratiharas, along with a bunch of other Rajput dynasties, the Chalukyas, the Paramaras, and the Chahamanas, were all born from this massive fire ritual.
Whoa, a fire ritual.
Yeah, it's called a yajna, and supposedly it took place at Mount Abu.
It's like something straight out of a myth.
It really is, and it plays into their image as protectors, like warriors forged in fire to defend India.
That's a powerful image. It makes you wonder if there's any historical basis to it.
Well, it might not be literal history,
Right.
but it tells us a lot about how they wanted to be seen, these divinely chosen defenders. It's all about legitimacy, connecting themselves to these ancient sacred traditions.
So it's like a PR campaign for their dynasty.
Haha, you could say that.
And then there's their title, Pratihara, literally doorkeeper. It's like I can picture these powerful guardians standing at India's gates holding back invaders.
That's a great way to visualize it. And there's even a connection to the Ramayana, the epic. Lakshmana acts as Rama's doorkeeper.
Oh, yeah. So they're drawing a parallel to these epic heroes.
Exactly. Whether it was a literal connection or symbolic, who knows? But it definitely adds another layer to their story.
It's all about claiming that role of protector. And of course, we can't forget the connection to Gujarat itself. Many believe it comes from Gurjara. What do you make of that?
Well, it definitely hints at their power base, their origins, and their potential reach. It's amazing how their name is still reflected in the geography of India today.
It really is. But the question is, how did they go from doorkeepers to rulers of this vast empire?
Yeah.
How did they rise to power like that?
Okay, so picture this. The Gupta Empire crumbles, and there's this power vacuum. A recipe for some serious competition.
It's intense.
It was. Historians call it the tripartite struggle.
Tripartite meaning three-way.
You got it. It was the Gurjara Pratiharas, the Palas, who controlled Bengal in the east, and the Rashtrakutas down south in the Deccan.
Wow, a three-way battle for supremacy. What were they fighting for?
The ultimate prize, Kanauj. It was this strategically vital city controlling key trade routes, resources, and a ton of prestige.
So Kanauj was the symbol of power then. Whoever held it basically ruled the north.
Pretty much. And the Gurjara Pratiharas were determined to get their hands on it.
Did they succeed?
It was a real back-and-forth struggle. A lot of key figures shaped the dynasty's fate.
Like who? Give us some names.
Well, we have Nagapada. He was the real founder, famous for his victories against those Arab invaders.
So he solidified their image as defenders.
Absolutely. Then you've got Vatsaraja, a real expansionist. He clashed with the Palas, pushing the boundaries of the empire even further.
These guys sound like true warrior kings.
Yeah.
But did they manage to hold on to Kanauj during all of this?
Vatsaraja actually captured Kanauj for a time, but he had some setbacks against the Rashtrakutas. Then his successor, Nagabhata II, came onto the scene.
Another Nagabhata.
Yep. And he was a force to be reckoned with. He took back lost territories, including Kanauj. He even pushed back against those Palas. He really established the Gurjara Pratiharas as the dominant power in northern India.
So they were on top. But wasn't there a ruler named Bhoja Is? He's supposed to be even more legendary, right?
Borjai, also known as Mihir or Prabhasa. He reigned for almost 50 years, from 836 to 885 AD. He's considered one of their most brilliant rulers.
50 years. It's a long time. What did he accomplish?
He expanded the empire south into Malwa and Gujarat. He even took the title Adivaraha. It signifies his devotion to Vishnu.
It's amazing how these little details, their titles, their beliefs, give us a glimpse into who these rulers really were. It's not just about the battles and conquests, but understanding their motivations, the ideas that shaped their reign.
Exactly. And we're lucky to have accounts from Arab travelers like Suleiman.
Suleiman?
Yeah, he actually visited Bajazet's court. He describes him as this powerful ruler, massive army, incredible wealth, a safe and prosperous kingdom.
So he wasn't just a warrior king, but a smart administrator and a patron of prosperity.
You got it.
It makes you wonder, did they just focus on war and politics? What about architecture culture? Did they contribute anything in those areas?
Oh, absolutely. The Gurjara Pratiharas were big patrons of the arts. They developed this distinct architectural style. We call it Mahujara.
Gurjara. That sounds interesting. What's it like?
It's this fascinating blend of different architectural traditions. It tells us a lot about their influences and their sophistication.
Can you give some examples? I'm always fascinated by how architecture reflects a dynasty's beliefs and values.
Well, one of the most striking examples is the Telekamandir in Gwalior.
Telekamandir.
Yeah, it's dedicated to Shiva Vishnu and the Matrikas. It's got this unusual rectangular sanctum, and it blends the Nagara and Vallabhi Prasada styles.
A rectangular sanctum, that's pretty different. And what about this blend of styles? What's that tell us?
It shows they were open to different influences, which makes sense given how big their empire was. But what's really cool is that the Telekamandir was designed based on musical harmonics.
Wait, what? A temple designed on musical harmonics? I don't get it.
It's thought that they actually calculated the proportions and dimensions to create certain acoustic effects.
Whoa. So you're saying they were using architecture to create music?
It's possible. It shows a pretty sophisticated understanding of those principles. It's like they wanted to create a structure that resonated not just visually, but also acoustically.
So it was meant to be a spiritual experience through sound and space.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty amazing. What other examples are there?
We have the Mahavira Jain Temple in Ojhan, Rajasthan.
Ojhan?
Yeah, it's the oldest surviving Jain temple in Western India.
I see.
It shows how inclusive the dynasty was. They supported different faiths. Ancient India wasn't just one big culture. It was a mix of so many beliefs and practices.
It's incredible how these structures have lasted for centuries.
Right.
You know, they're like silent witnesses to the Gurjara Pratihara era.
And each one has its own story to tell, like the Bateswar Hindu temples in Madhya Pradesh.
What's special about those?
It's a complex of over 200 temples dedicated to Shiva, Vishnu, and Shakti.
200.
Yep. It shows the diverse religious landscape of the time. Imagine what it must have been like back then, this hub of activity, a testament to their commitment to religious pluralism.
It's hard to even picture. So they were building all these amazing temples.
Yeah.
But what about literature? Did they have any famous poets or writers?
Oh, yeah. Their court was a center of literary activity. King Mahendrapala. He ruled from 885 to 910 AD. He was a huge patron of learning.
He sounds like he really valued education.
He did, and he had this court poet named Rajashekara. He's actually still celebrated today.
What kind of things did he write?
Works like Karpura Manjari and Kavyamamsa. They give us a glimpse into life at court and the literary trends of the time.
So they had this whole intellectual side, too. It adds another dimension to their story. But of course, all empires fall. What happened to the Gurjara Pratiharas?
It was a gradual decline. A mix of internal and external pressures. You could say the seeds of their downfall were sown during their peak.
What do you mean? What kind of internal pressures?
Their empire got so vast, it became really hard to manage. And their feudatories, you know those regional rulers who were supposed to be loyal to the king?
Yeah.
They started flexing their muscles, asserting their independence.
So basically rebellions, internal power struggles. Sounds familiar.
It's a classic sign of an empire that's stretched too thin, like the Chandelas.
Who are they?
They were vassals of the Gurjara Pratiharas, but they got more and more powerful. Around 950 AD, they actually captured Gwalior.
Gwalior, did we talk about that earlier?
Yeah, it was a key fortress. Losing it was a huge blow. It left them vulnerable.
Like losing a piece in a game of chess. It changes everything.
Yeah.
Did they have any enemies outside the empire?
The Rashtrakutas. Those rivals from the Deccan. They were always a problem. Indra III. He was a Rashtrakuta ruler. He even captured Kannauj for a short time in 916 AD.
So they were fighting on multiple fronts. Sounds like they couldn't catch a break. Was there a final decisive event, something that marked the end of the empire?
The final blow came from Mahmud of Ghazni, a powerful ruler from Central Asia. He swept through northern India in the early 11th century.
Mahmud of Ghazni.
He captured Kannauj in 1018 AD. It was basically the end for the Gurjara Pratihara Empire. What was left was just a bunch of smaller states.
It's a reminder that even the mightiest empires crumble, especially when they're facing pressure from inside and out. But their cultural impact lived on, didn't it? All that art and architecture, the literature, it feels like it goes beyond politics.
Absolutely. Their architectural marvels, that unique Gurjara style, they're still standing, telling their story. And the literary works Rajashekhara's writings, they give us a window into their world.
So even though their empire broke apart, their influence remained, especially in the realm of culture. But did the Gurjara Pratiharas completely disappear after Kanauj fell?
Not quite. While the empire was gone, some branches of the dynasty held on. They ruled in smaller states.
So their story didn't just end. It continued, but on a smaller scale. Do we know anything about these branches? Where they ended up?
One branch ruled in Mandore, that's in Rajasthan. They lasted until the 14th century.
Wow. They were pretty resilient, adapting to the changing times. History's full of twists and turns. It's not always a simple rise and fall.
It's amazing, isn't it, how they held on in Mandore? It really shows you how history is never straightforward.
Yeah, it's full of surprises, and it's not always a simple rise and fall.
Exactly. And get this branch in Mandore, they actually had ties to the Rathore clan.
The Rathores. Weren't they a powerful Rajput clan?
They were, and they became super prominent in Rajasthan later on.
I see. So even in their decline,
Yeah.
the Gurjara Pratiharas were making connections that shaped the future.
It's all about those relationships and alliances, Medieval India, it was complicated.
Like a giant web.
Exactly. Power was constantly shifting,
History's rarely black and white. It's more like a tapestry.
with all those threads intertwining.
So as we unravel those threads, we get a better understanding of the Gurjara Pratiharas, their impact.
It's like putting together a puzzle.
One piece at a time.
And sometimes the most interesting pieces are the ones that don't quite fit,
The ones that make you rethink everything.
Exactly.
Speaking of rethinking, we've talked a lot about their political history. But for those of you prepping for the UPSC exams, there's more to the Gurjara Pratiharas than just dates and battles.
Right. They're super important for understanding the big picture trends of ancient India.
Like the tripartite struggle for Kanauj, that was a major turning point.
It shaped the entire political landscape of northern India.
And their empire at its height, it stretched from the Himalayas down to the Narmada River. That's huge.
So many different cultures and traditions all under their rule.
And even as their empire fragmented, their influence didn't disappear.
Think about their art and architecture, the literature,
The Mahu Gujara style. It became a defining feature of the time.
and their support of scholars like Rajashekhara. It helped create this vibrant intellectual scene.
So they left their mark not just through military might, but through culture and knowledge.
It shows that a dynasty's legacy can last long after it's gone. It lives on in different ways.
In the things they create, the ideas they inspire.
Sure, exactly.
So even though their empire crumbled, their story didn't truly end.
It continues to echo through the monuments, the texts, and even the landscape itself.
That's like a ripple effect.
And for UPSC aspirants studying the Gurjara Pratiharas, it's not about memorizing facts. It's about understanding their significance
How they fit into the big picture.
and the lessons we can learn from them, from their successes and their failure,
It's about making those connections.
and appreciating the complexity of history.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a thought. What if, instead of just focusing on their decline, we saw the fragmentation of their empire as a new beginning?
That's an interesting way to look at it. Instead of a failure, it's a transformation.
Right, a period of decentralization that leads to new powers emerging, new cultural expressions flourishing.
Like the Chandelas, the Paramaras, the Chahamanas, they all broke away from the Gurjara Pratihara Empire.
And they all went on to make their own mark on history.
It's a reminder that history isn't just a straight line. It's a web of interconnected events.
Full of unintended consequences.
What seems like an ending might actually be a new beginning.
So as you continue to explore the world of the Gurjara Pratiharas, keep that in mind. Look beyond the simple rise and fall.
Embrace the nuances, the complexities, the unexpected turns. That's where the real story lies.
And that's how we learn and grow.
Well said.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the Gurjara Pratiharas. Thanks for joining us on this journey back in time.
We hope you learned something new and gained a new appreciation for this incredible dynasty and their lasting impact.
Before we go, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our future explorations.
Happy learning, everyone.
See you next time.